What's up, guys?
Hello!
Hello!
We made it.
Welcome to our live stream.
Why?
Who's with us today?
Currently my partner.
Hell yeah, our biggest fan!
I love these questions. They're L-centric questions.
Oh boy. We're not going to ask those yet, though. First, we're just going to establish why we're here, first and foremost, which is that this is celebrating the centennial edition of the Winchester Mystery House. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of what that means, starting with Lex. Because you've been the lead production artist on the upcoming game that's on this backer kit. So I wanted to ask you to let us know a little bit about Sarah and the house itself to start us off.
You want me to give you the history lesson?
Yeah.
And not the history buff?
I'm excited.
Not deep dive. Just give everybody the big picture.
This is the worst idea. You asked the wrong person.
This is great.
She got all that Winchester money, and then she was like, I'm gonna buy a house, and this house isn't good enough, so I'm gonna make it way awesome. And because she thought she was haunted by all the spooky spirits, so she had to keep them trapped and locked away in the house. So there was lots of ghosts, so she had to build a lot of rooms. And yep, that's the history of Sarah Winchester by Lyx Lyon, the most undereducated person there is.
See, this is exactly
Back to you, Josh. Why?
So, Sarah Winchester was the heiress to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company fortune. So after losing her in-laws and her husband and her daughter, the company came down to her, 50% of it, and this kind of lonely, grieving widow took this massive fortune
and the fast version.
Moved out west and spent the next 3 decades building this gigantic labyrinth to house the spirits of everyone who've ever been killed by a Winchester rifle. So we're talking about 160 rooms that have been occupied by ghosts for the past 100 years, 100 plus years.
I thought I was supposed to get the fast version.
That was the fast version.
All right.
Josh, you sound really well researched on this. Could you be a writer?
And I am the writer for the Winchester Mystery House comic book series, which now has volume 1 out, which covers the first 10 years of the house. Good luck finding it, though, because it's sold out pretty much everywhere.
Is that the story that's contained in this current backer kit?
Which is why we're here. Yes. So if you can't find this, which has the bare bones edition, you go to WinchesterMysteryComic.com. We have exactly 7 days left. This is the final week. So this is your last chance. What you're going to get is the Centennial Edition, which is the super cool version of this, which has wraparound artwork done by me, and it has gold foil stamps and just all this beautiful stuff, plus cool bonus content. And you only have a week to get it, and we're only going to print enough to cover the campaign. That's it. It's not going to be going to stores. So eventually there will be a second printing of this in stores, but this is a much, much, much cooler way to get it. And it's your first chance to be able to get the game before everybody else.
Yeah, on the side of the stream, you all can see that wraparound art to the left. That's the artwork that Josh did for the Centennial Edition. And Lex is holding up the prototype for the game right now, but you can also see the finalized artwork for it in the bottom corner, too. Drana says that y'all are killing it.
It will be glow in the dark, too. It'll have the glow in the dark spot finish. So that's one of the really cool things about the box. Unfortunately, our little prototype does not have that, but it'd be so spooky.
Lex, what was your involvement with the game?
Lots and lots and lots of stuff. So I'm the production manager and artist, and what that means is I get the game in the very, very bare bones. They're basically just like pieces of paper with text on them, and then we make them look really cool and into a game. Malia did the illustrations for all of the room cards, which look absolutely awesome. They worked out so well. So those are all on the request cards that you'll be using to build all the rooms. And then I went through and like designed out the whole card layout and the way the player sheets are laid out and played. this whole box design and stuff. We recreated like this wallpaper from like the actual house, and there's like a bunch of really cool stuff in this game that's like real history. Like we have newspaper clippings about the earthquake and all kinds of stuff. It's very fun.
Lex's attention to detail was incredible. There's so many little Easter eggs. If you're familiar with the history of this house, you're going to find so many fun things hidden throughout the design work in this. It's beautiful.
My attention to detail is much better than my just attention.
Now, everybody in the crowd, you're welcome to ask whatever questions you please, but I've got a few to walk us through things a little bit and introduce us to some information that you might not know. Well, you can tell that Lex and Josh are both incredibly well researched here. In fact, Josh got to do some research that pretty much no one else in the world gets to do. Josh, can you talk to us about your visit to the house itself?
Sure. So we did a really cool press event there where so myself and John Brieger, who is the designer behind the game mechanics for this version of Floor Plan, we held a really cool event at the house where we invited about like newspapers, we had board game reviewers, comic book reviewers, supernatural podcasts, ghost hunters. We had a really cool eclectic group of people. And we took them to the property, into the carriage house, which is like a big garage where they kept all the carriages. And we fed them food, and we had them play a prototype of the game, and we gave them like an ash can of the comic. I gave a big speech. We autographed stuff, and they asked us a bunch of questions. And then at the end of the night, we said, okay, there's one last thing we could do before everybody goes home. Hopefully you've learned lots about this and you go write a bunch of cool articles about the things we're making. But first, we're all going to go through a private tour of the house. And everybody was super excited. And I said, but they have shut off all the power to the house, and each of you are getting a flashlight. And that's when about 40% of them dropped out. They were like, nope, I'm out.
People actually dropped out?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Oh
we had
my
people who
gosh.
did not want to do it once they found out it was going to be in the dark.
I'm so jealous. I
it was
want to be
so
there
much
and make
fun.
better choices than
Yeah.
you did.
The people who came, they had a great time, and it was awesome. But on top of that, I got to do a very, very special bell ringing ceremony on Friday the 13th. So for those who don't know, there is a famous bell tower on the property. If you're not familiar with the lore of this, right? So Sarah Winchester was building this mansion around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over 30 years. And every single night, she would go to the seance room at midnight. And she would be there for approximately 2 hours or more. No one knows exactly. Anybody who tells you exactly how long she was in there, they're a liar. Because she was never seen leaving the room. And that's because she would exit through a secret passage. There's a secret passageway in the seance room. Anyway, so every night they would ring this bell, and it would say, do not bother the madam. Lady Winchester will be busy in the seance room. And when she died, this kind of became this cool, like, sacred space. They would leave the bell alone. It's not part of the tour. Nobody touches the bell. Except every time there's a Friday the 13th, they ring the bell 13 times on the 13th hour in honor of Sarah Winchester and her fascination and obsession with the number 13. She believed that number held a lot of power. And it's seen throughout the design work of the house and in the game. And they do this like little cool ceremony for her, and they said, would you like to come out and be the person who rings the bell on this Friday the 13th? And I said yes. It was awesome. It was super awesome. And then we were running late, and we were stuck in traffic, and it was nerve-wracking because they're calling. They're like, listen, in 100 years of this tradition, we've never done it at 1:01. It has to be exactly at 1 o'clock. So we were running late. I had to jump out of a moving car and like book it, and I had somebody grab my arm and run me through the house. And of course, it's through, like a shortcut through the house to get to the tower. So I'm in rooms I've never seen before, which I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. But I got there and I had like 30 seconds to spare, and they're teaching me what to do to ring the bell, and it was terrifying because it's a rope pulley system, so you're pulling the rope and it makes it swing. And they said you can't let it ring a 14th time. That's the most important part. I'm like, okay, no problem. I can count, 13, got it. They're like, no, you don't understand. It's a really big bell, and it builds up a lot of momentum, and it's just going to want to swing a 14th time all by itself. So now we have about 15 seconds before we start, and I'm panicking. I'm like, well, how do I stop it from doing that? So, there is a way. It's, one rope goes up while the other goes down. So you just grab both of them and you kind of hold them perfectly still, and it fizzles it out if you do it at the exact right moment. And I nailed it. It went great. I'm like 90% sure that it went great. So,
I like how you make every experience anxious.
It was awful. I asked, too, right before. I was like, listen, if I screw this up, can we just not tell anybody that it was me up in the tower this year? And they said, actually, there's a camera right over here, and we're live streaming it. So, yeah. A lot of pressure. But
That sounds like my nightmare.
I didn't ruin a century-long tradition. Everything's okay.
Having to count on live camera, I think I would rather die.
Right. I'm like, that's 12 rings. That's 13 rings. Ah.
That's really high. That's more than my fingers, so I think I would
Yeah.
get lost.
Yeah. They're like, my shoes off, start counting toes.
Oh my gosh, gross.
No, it was great though, and the house is just it's an amazing place. There's nothing else like it in the world. It's a bucket list worthy place to visit. Anybody hasn't been there and has been curious about it, make plans, make it happen. We're lucky to get to go into the home of Sarah Winchester that so few people got to go in while she was alive. I mean, almost no one ever got to see the whole house. When she would allow visitors, she had a separate entrance that would take you to one room, and it was designed just so that those people could not see the house, so they couldn't see what was going on in there. So it was a rare occurrence during her life to be able to see what exactly was going on inside this house, and now to have it open to the public, that is a gift. So don't waste it. Go see this house.
You mentioned earlier during the race to the bell tower that it was really challenging because you were entering into rooms you hadn't seen before and you wanted to gawk.
Mm-hmm. Lots of gawking.
Were there any rooms that you were pretty meh on until you actually stood inside of them?
Yeah, there's certain parts of the house that are extremely difficult to catch on camera. If you go there and you're like, oh, I want to show this to people, and you try to take pictures of it, they just won't do it justice. And a lot of it has to do with the way you'd have to position and angle yourself, with your phone or your camera to be able to get a good shot of it. So when you see pictures of things like the switchback stairs, that's something you really can't fathom or understand unless you're there in person and walking up and down those stairs. They're very, very difficult to get a good photo of. So to see those in person, I was like, wow, this is so much cooler, and it also kind of really clicks in your brain, like the layout of the house, certain rooms, certain hallways. There's things that the seance room is amazing. Being in the seance room is amazing, and there's no photos of that room that do it justice. It just feels like a room in the pictures, but you go in there and you're like, wow, this is incredible. Like you walk in, and to your immediate left there's another door, except if you were to open it, you would fall a couple floors down into a sink in a kitchen. And then to your right, there's these hooks, and then there's these cabinets. And if you open them, you'll see more hooks, so that they total to 13 hooks. And then there's more cabinets on the opposite wall, and that is where the hidden exit door is. So there are 3 doors to this room, but only one way in. It's very, very cool, and there's just no way to really grasp it unless you're there in person.
So Karen in the chat has a question for both of you. She's asking, if you could ask Sarah one question, what would you ask her?
Oh man, that's so hard.
It's nuts. I've done so many interviews about this and no one's ever asked me that. Wow, I can't believe nobody's ever asked me that before. It's a great question.
I think I would want to know how many ghosts you thought were in the house.
I would have to. I think I would have.
I would ask if she dated any of the ghosts in the house.
She had her time with Mr. Winchester.
I would ask about the staircase to nowhere. So there's a famous staircase in the house, and it runs right into a ceiling. And so
It's
if you
also
go
in
up
the
it,
game.
it's also in the game. So if you were a ghost, for example, you could just continue right up those stairs. But if you're a human being, you're just going to hit your head and go nowhere. Now, there's a lot of theories as to why this staircase exists, where it used to lead to. A lot of people have chalked up the earthquake to anything that's unexplainable in the house, and they don't want to believe in the supernatural. They're like, well, it's just the earthquake. There was an earthquake.
100%.
The earthquake was, it probably just wrecked something, and they had to just wall it off, and they left it like that. That's people's out for everything. But if you look at the design of the house, it is not likely that that was just the result of the earthquake. There was probably very intentional design behind it. And part of the mystery is we don't know her reasons for everything she did. So there's a lot of questions about why she did certain things certain ways. I have been very lucky enough to create a fictitious story behind the creation of the staircase to nowhere. It happens in the climax of volume 1 of the comic book, which you can get on the back of it right now. It is one of my favorite things that I've written so far for it. I'm very lucky that the house allowed me to do that, to tell my version of why this staircase exists. And it's very much a supernatural reason, but I would love to know the real reason. And no one ever will, unless I get to ask Sarah.
On the note of the backer kit, Daniel is asking for a delivery ETA. I've dropped a link in the chat to the backer kit, and there is actually a little graphic for the timeline. We are looking to fulfill this project in early November, and then the game itself will get a full-blown distribution and retail release in the first half of 2023.
So to ensure that everything goes smoothly and you get your rewards super quick, I am printing the trade paperback, even though it's got the gold foil stamp and all this really cool stuff. I'm printing it locally here in North America so that you can get it faster. It would save us a ton of money if we didn't and we boat shipped it, but that would take a long time, months. So to make sure everybody gets it really fast, we're going to pay a premium and have all that gold foil stamping, all that stuff done right here locally. And then the game is wrapping up production as we speak and being airshipped on a plane. We're going to pay thousands of dollars to get them here faster so you guys don't have to wait for that boat. So we're doing everything we can essentially to fulfill this campaign really, really fast for you guys. We want it to be in your hands, and we're excited for it.
Yeah, game should be shipping out next week.
And I'm laying out all the final print files for the book and waiting to see over the course of this next week what stretch goals we hit. And if that will help us afford to bulk the book up with even more cool stuff.
And if we hit 30, we get that gold edge.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh. We just got that in from one of the mystery backer kits, by the way, and it is so gorgeous in person to see a book like that. Mm-hmm. So Robert has a question, and then I have a couple of questions to spawn off of that a bit. So this one is for you, Josh.
Okay.
Did you experience anything supernatural while you were on the grounds?
Kind of. So, nothing too crazy, but I'll tell you guys, what I have to offer you. One, there's tons and tons and tons of supernatural experiences that have happened in the house, and even if I haven't experienced them firsthand, I have experienced stories firsthand, which are just phenomenal. Going in the house, I got stopped by a lot of the tour guides and the people who kind of work. They're like stationed throughout the house to make sure that you stay on the path. Because if you leave the tour, you can get lost. There are parts of the house that are not part of the tour. It's easy to get lost in there. So there's people kind of stationed throughout. And one of my favorite things was getting stopped by them and getting asked, like, hey, are you the guy writing the comic? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So nice to meet you. And they're like, I have stories for you. Do you have a second? Like, I need to tell you some things. And I would get to hear all these amazing things that have happened to them while they work there. So the employees who work there have incredible stories of all of these paranormal experiences they've had. But while I was there were certain rooms that gave me really strong feelings and vibes. And you have to remember that I'm coming in there from a script writing standpoint and an art standpoint. So I'm super interested in every room. I want to be in every room as long as I can because I'm taking note of what the molding looks like. I'm trying to figure out if those are the original doorknobs. All these little details I'm trying to note away. Or how many feet is it between this room and this room? If I have a conversation between two people and they have to walk from room to room, how many panels would it take in a comic? So for me to go in a room and go, oh, I don't like this room. I need to get out of this room right now. I immediately stop and recognize that. I'm like, whoa, why am I feeling that way? I should be loving every second in this room. And the creepier the better, right? So it was really interesting for me to have certain feelings in certain rooms and just kind of internalize that. And then behind me, I had these ghost hunters who had a medium with them who was recording all of her feelings live, like into her recorder. And she was a few, steps behind me. So I would enter a room, have a feeling. She would enter the room behind me and basically validate my feelings by saying exactly what I was thinking out loud. And it happened so many times. It was remarkable. But the other thing is there's a really mysterious photo that I did not take that is in my camera roll of a chair, a rocking chair, a very strange looking rocking chair. And there is a part of the chair where you can follow it. It's all like 3D, 3D, 3D. And then part of the chair just kind of disappears and then goes back to the chair again. And it's, I chalked it up to, must have been a motion blur effect or something. It must have accidentally hit a button as I was walking. And because I can see the photo before and after it in my camera roll, and I can figure out where it was. Like, oh, this is in this room. But then when I showed it to the people who work there, they're like, no, that's not here. That's not in the house. Because I know that's definitely in the house. I mean, it was taken like an hour ago, and it's between this photo and this photo, so I know I can pinpoint where it is. They're like, that chair is not in this house. There's no chair like that in here. And you can tell because it's got like these kind of like torn fabric, like rags hanging off it. And everything in the house is pristine, just beautiful. Beautiful furniture. So it is odd, not a place in that regard, to see this strange rocking chair. And so we went back to the room, and sure enough, there was no rocking chair there.
Do you still have that photo?
I do. I do still have the photo.
We'll share that photo in a social media post later this week, everyone.
And the chair, that particular chair that I saw, or my phone saw that apparently wasn't there, is written into the 100-Year Curse comic book, which is a one-shot that if we hit 25,000, we're going to add to this book. So you're going to get a book with a whole additional comic in it for no additional charge if we can hit 25. That's the goal. And then you guys will get to see the chair in the story, which is pretty cool.
Jordan says, hey.
What's up, Jordan?
And then Daniel has a follow-up question. Will we be bringing prototypes of the book or game to New York Comic Con?
So there's not enough time to originally I wanted to print the book and have some copies to take to New York, but because I have to wait to see what stretch goals get hit this week, I can't. There won't be enough time to print it and bring any. And we're sold out of this. There will be at New York Comic Con an exclusive variant cover of issue 1 that's just for the show, and that the cover art hasn't been revealed yet. It's top secret. We're not going to show you until you get there in person and come see it, but I'm really excited about it. And then the game, it's kind of in the air.
It's kind of in the air.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Yeah, we have a plane ready and to put games in the back of it and fly to New York, but we have to wait.
It'll be done this week,
yes.
So we'll see based on the shipping, really.
It could happen. It will cost us a fortune, but it could happen.
Yeah.
We might end up having some there, which would be so cool to have there.
I really hope so.
Fingers crossed.
There we go. So some follow-ups about experiences. So for starters, do either of you feel like Josh brought anything back with him to the office when he returned from the house?
I feel like Josh brings something back with him every time he leaves somewhere, to be honest. You always just... It's you.
I feel like there's probably already some stuff in this building anyway.
There is stuff in this building.
There's been some experiences here.
So did you notice hijinks around your desk before or after your trip?
When was that? That was before.
I think it was before. It wasn't long after being here. I started having a weird thing happen to some of my stuff.
For a little bit more context, for those of you that might not know, we currently have our office in a historic building of one of the most haunted areas, supposedly, of Saginaw, Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we moved into it about when we started working on the Winchester project.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this building is over a century old, and It's got a lot of history of its own, and like Al said, this is a super haunted area. This building next door to us has a documentary about it, how haunted it is. There's a building, I can throw a rock out the window and hit it from here. It's kitty corner from us, also has a documentary about how haunted it is. This whole area is just super haunted.
We have had multiple weird stuff happen. If you stay and everybody else leaves, this building gets very noisy. Very noisy.
Here's a cool one. So I came in and it was either super early in the morning or late at night or the weekend. I don't know. But I didn't...
One of the times when I...
It happened during a time.
Yeah. A time when I wouldn't expect anybody to be here. So, I came in the door and I could hear... I was about to go up the staircase. There's a staircase that turns. It kind of winds to get to the design studio upstairs where we work. And I heard footsteps go clunk, 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 clunk up the stairs. And I just came in the front door, so I'm like, oh, I must be right behind somebody. Somebody must have just came in. So I get to the bottom of the stairs, and there's a doorway halfway up the staircase. So where the staircase winds, there's a doorway. I hear the door slam, super loud. So loud and so hard that I'm like, oh, wow, whoever's here is angry about something. So I'm like, oof, okay, this will be interesting. Go upstairs, open the door. I'm ready to give hugs. And there's nobody here at all. Nobody upstairs. So I'm like, what? I'm like, somebody's here. So I check the bathroom. I check the warehouse, the second floor warehouse. I go down the back stairs to the first floor warehouse. Nobody. I go back out the front. Nobody. I go outside. No cars. There's nobody here.
Yep.
Stuff like that has happened a bunch of times.
I had a similar situation where I thought it was you and Ozzy, where I was here very early in the morning. And I had heard the front door open, somebody walk up the steps, and little Ozzy and his little tick, 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 tick. Yeah, shut that door, come in. I was in the, we have a upstairs warehouse that's right next to that room. And I was like, oh, Josh is here, come out. Nobody's here. So yeah, this building is spooky.
Robert's asking, have we been in contact with Shippy about the Saginaw history?
That's so
hilarious.
So I don't know if you know this. You probably don't. This is probably an innocent question. So Steve Shippy, yes, I have been. And I would go as far as to say we are friends now. We hit it off so well. So Steve, for those who don't know, Steve Shippy is a paranormal investigator and documentarian who is the host of Travel Channel's Haunting in the Heartland and many other series. And he's done, I think, 13 or 14 documentaries himself that you can watch on Prime Video that are all about hauntings within about a 20-mile radius of where we are right now. There's that much, there's such a history of hauntings in this area that he has dedicated an entire series of documentaries about it. And we had him over to the office and we gave him a tour of the building. We hung out, we chatted, and we were talking about some potential things we could do together. And one of the things he said is, I'm working on a museum. I want to open a haunted museum right here in the heart of downtown Saginaw, right down the street from your office. And I could really use your help with things like signage and marketing and graphics and imagery and logos, all this stuff. So our team has partnered with him for months on doing that, and t-shirt designs for his shop and all this stuff. And he had an amazing grand opening of the museum. It's incredible. If you guys haven't been to it, it's really close to our office in the most haunted part of Saginaw, in one of the most haunted buildings in Saginaw. So he put the museum in an old funeral home, one of the oldest funeral homes in Saginaw. And then he filmed a documentary about the building itself that the museum's in. And then there was a big premiere for that documentary right here downtown, and it was sold out. It was jam-packed, shoulder to shoulder in there. It was incredible. So yeah, I do know Steve Shippy, and yeah, it's pretty cool. We've gotten to collaborate on some things.
Robert says that's awesome. He loves shipping.
In fact, so I don't know if how many of you watching this know Martha. Martha is the art director at Source Point Press, and she handles all our pre-production and stuff.
We love Martha.
Martha and I were in the museum before it opened while he was still setting everything up. And Steve kept having all these paranormal things happen, right? So he's like, yeah, I'm still just trying to set up the museum, and I'm having all these crazy paranormal experiences before I'm even turning on the cameras. I'm not even filming anything yet, and stuff is happening already. Well, he had just gotten his geoport delivered. For those who don't know, this geoport is this incredible invention that is able to pluck voices out of the air that are just outside the range of human hearing, but it looks for those sounds that we can't hear, and it looks specifically for patterns that sound like voices, like human, conversation, and it plays them for you in real time. So almost like a radio, except it's not radio stations that it's picking up.
It's really creepy.
And so he has the biggest, most powerful one in the world. It was custom built specifically for him. And the inventor drove it up to Michigan and drove it to Saginaw and delivered it to the museum himself in person.
It looks like an old jukebox.
It's really cool because
really cool.
The inventor, he loves to retrofit old radios for his geoports. And so he brought in this big, huge one. Martha and I went over there because I needed to paint the geoport into this big piece of art that we were doing. Dustin Irvin from the Winchester Mystery House, he did this incredible painting, and I collaborated with him and painted some other stuff in there too. So I was painting the geoport into his piece, and so I needed to go over there to see it and take pictures of it. And Steve said, he was describing, he's like, well, when it's in action and when it's picking up voices, this little screen in the front, it lights up and it has these little lights that go up kind of like a chart. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm trying to take notes. And he's like, what am I saying? I'll just turn it on for you and you can take pictures of it in action. And I was like, well, you said, don't the ghosts have to be talking for it to light up? He's like, you won't have to wait long. Trust me. He turns on the geoport. Martha and I are standing there. I mean, within 10 seconds, there's a ton of activity. All of these voices are coming out of this box and they're speaking to us. And Steve, he says, hey, it's me, Steve. Would you like to say hello to Josh and Martha? And they did. Martha and I are just standing there staring at each other. It was mind-blowing. So this goes on for about 30 seconds and we start hearing multiple voices. We're just enamored with this. And he's like, okay, did you guys get the photos you need? I'm like, oh yeah, photos, right, of course. Click, yep, got it, okay, great. He's like, all right, cool, got your reference. And I'm like, what just happened? Martha and I were like, we finished our meeting with them and we're walking back to the office and we're like, are we going to acknowledge that the dead people just spoke to us through a box? And it was wild. It was so cool.
I love how casual he was about it.
Oh, it's super casual.
He's like, this is literally every day of my life.
Yeah, he's like, they're a real chat. Yeah, they're a real chat. We're going to have to shut this off, otherwise they're going to go on all day. I'm like, man, I was...
Shut up. Bringing it back to Winchester a little bit. Although we've stayed on the spooky and the paranormal overall, do either of you have a favorite fact about Sarah or the house that you learned during, this creative process and working on the project?
I do.
Go first.
Okay, so my favorite thing about Sarah is she was so wealthy, and she was not, while she wasn't just kind of like handing out money to anybody who asked, she was a huge philanthropist and extremely quiet and private about it. And there's lots of great facts about that. But my favorite thing was that she was paying all of her workers extremely well, and she was super, the job she was offering to people for the time, it was incredible seeing the amazing wages she was paying to minorities. We're talking like first generation freed slaves getting paid as much as the highest craftsman white person in America. So she was hiring just amazing, diverse group of people. And she also spoke like 7 languages. So she would often hire people who weren't necessarily great English speakers, and therefore were struggling to get jobs because she could speak to them just fine because she spoke so many languages. So she had this just incredible, diverse group of people working under her, and they were super loyal to her because she paid them so well and she took such great care of them. And she had so many workers that she paid so well that she created a mini economy that really the entire city owes its economy to her. And that area is now Silicon Valley. Pretty dope.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know if I have a favorite thing. I think I just like that she's so, I would say, like, misunderstood. Like, I think a lot of people think that she's like very crazy or like just, I don't know, like weird, but everything she did was so intentional and so, like, I don't know. She wasn't doing it because she was crazy. Like, you can't build a house with, like, just built on hopes and dreams and crazy. Like, you have to be, like, so smart to design the house and make it work, and it's awesome.
She was always the smartest person in the room.
100%.
Like, learning through you guys, I think one of my personal favorites was, like, the conservatories and the fact that she was, like, actually inventing new technology.
Absolutely. So here's one of my favorites. She had, before we had regular, electric lights where you flip a switch on a wall and electricity runs to a light bulb, she had push button wall lights. She like a push button on the wall that would turn on a light, but it was all gas. So she had rigged up this series of allowing small amounts of gas to go to a gas lantern, like a light bulb hanging from the ceiling, that you could turn on and off with a button on a wall. Before we had switches on walls for lights. I mean, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. She had showers. She, like, at a time when very few people did. Yep. She was just way ahead of the game. And because there's 160 rooms and you have to be heated, the incredible and constant wings that are changing and being added on, the basement that is built and the heating design is really unique. They had to have this massive furnace that could try to, like, heat all these different rooms for all these different ways, and getting airflow to move throughout this house is so difficult because it's such a labyrinth and so bizarre. It's so big and so crazy that it would be difficult to find someone if you needed to, right? So imagine Sarah is in the house and she needs assistance. How do you just start yelling, and then people are like, where are you? I'm in this room upstairs on this floor. It's bonkers to think about, right? So they developed this amazing system. They invented this thing called the Enunciator. So there are little stations throughout the house where Sarah can walk up to a station and she can push a button on the wall, and this will drop a card down into this board that is downstairs in an area where a lot of staff would be. And a card would drop in, and the card would have a number on it, and it would say 24. Well, each room and area of the house was sectioned off and labeled with these numbers so that they would know exactly. They would say, Sarah is in the North Conservatory and she needs our assistance. Go to room 24. And they would send somebody. That's genius. I mean, it's just incredible, some of the things that she had in that house. In fact, the house's history and its creativity and its incredible, like, Victorian architecture mixed with all these ways to have to communicate throughout this massive building have been played with in fiction for decades and decades. Stephen King's Rose Red was inspired by this house. Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House was inspired by this house.
One of my favorite comments we got on social media was someone asking if we had based this story off of the Winchesters from Supernatural, not understanding that the last name of the brothers is a reference to this.
Right, yep. Yeah. It's so funny. I get that, so I'll get, like, Supernatural fan club, like, podcasts that'll want to interview me, and I'll tell them, I'm like, this isn't about the show, right? This has nothing to do with the show. And they'll say, or does it? There's just, like, all these cool fan theories about how the Winchesters in the show are descendants of the, Winchesters from the Rifle Company from this real story, which I think is cool. I don't know if that's true. I've never actually watched Supernatural all the way through, so I have no idea. But I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I was off of Tumblr by the time that show.
Same.
Missed it.
Getting to work on such a big fixture of, like, history or media has got to be super cool. Do either of you have, like, a dream IP or franchise or piece of history that you would just, like, lose your mind if you got to work on it? Whether it's as a comic or models or a board game, regardless. What's that dream? franchise?
I don't know what it would be, or like, would it be a comic or a game? But I would love to do something to tell the story of Saint Hildegard. She's like just the coolest lady ever. She's like trapped in like a room for like ever and like forced to do all this church stuff, and you can go read about her, but like that's who I would want to do something. I don't know what it would be, but that would be my person, 100%.
Her story needs to be told.
It's so cool. Like, she lived in a freaking room that was like all walled up for like 40 freaking years. It was insane. Yeah.
So for me, there's a bunch of IPs that I would really, really love to just be connected to in some small way in history. And I'm very, very, very lucky to say that one of them is happening. It's coming true. Contracts are signed, and I can't tell you what it is yet. But anybody who knows me and knows like a lot of the horror stuff that I'm into is going to, you're probably going to do a little mini celebration for me when I announce it, because you'll be like, that, I'm so happy for Josh. I don't care at all about that thing, but I know Josh is really excited about it.
No, it's going to be cool. It's gonna be cool.
Do you know whenabouts you will get to be public about it?
We're going to make an announcement with the involved license holder within the next few months. We talked about announcing it next month at New York, but I'm not sure. We're going to discuss it a little further. I think it deserves its own thing. And New York's it's a big place, and there's a lot of announcements. And this is so special. I don't want it to get lost in the mix of all the other big news that's happening. And so soon after, I think, by the end of the year, you'll know. And I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to be working on it.
What are some of the upcoming projects y'all can talk about right now?
What can we talk about?
I know there's another board game you've been working on that you can talk about.
Am I allowed to talk about the other one?
I mean, you've been working on RQ for a long time.
Rat Queens. I thought you were talking about the other one. Rat Queens. I don't know if I have that much to say about Rat Queens other than, thank God, it's soon, very soon.
So close to done.
So there's like very small finalizing. We're already been in contact with Factory, and we've like sent them some stuff. We just got another production artist in, so like that will help our games get out sooner. So we're making a track to start getting these games out like on time, I guess.
Also, for those who've been waiting for Rat Queens, I promise you it was all worthwhile. The game is so much, your patience has allowed it to become so much better than it was before. It's gone through new changes and iterations and new rounds of playtesting that have made the game so much better, more balanced, more robust, and all this time has been spent working on it. So Lex has been just adding to it and making it even better than before. So it's going to be worth the wait.
Yeah, this game has been made with lots and lots of care and love and time, and it's in a place where we feel like the gameplay is very tight, and it's exactly what we wanted it to be.
We finally got to confirm that recently too. Lex got to demo it to strangers for the first time ever.
That was so fulfilling.
Last month at Gen Con.
That was so fulfilling. Everybody, I can't thank everybody enough for all the love and support and excitement everybody had playing the game. I just wanted to cry, and the entire Gen Con, and just to see people come up and people being excited that we have representation in a game, and it's a game about a bunch of women and we get to fight things, and it's cool, and it's not super girly though. There's still raunchiness and middle fingers, and it's awesome. I love this game. I love this comic. I'm so excited for everybody else to play it finally.
What have you got down the pipeline, Josh?
So I'm currently working on I'm doing a lot of writing right now. So I just finished writing the Molang graphic novel based on the children's TV series, which you can find on Netflix. If you have little ones, toddler age, it's a really good show for them. And then if they are getting a little bit older, and kind of aging out of the show, the graphic novel is the next perfect step. So that is, I just got pages in yesterday from it, and it looks beautiful. I'm working with Tom Zoller, who's a phenomenal artist who's done tons of big kids IPs. You might know his name from My Little Pony. So then the opposite end of the spectrum, so I've got this like very, very wholesome kids comic, and then the opposite end of the spectrum, I am currently writing for The Curse of Cleaver County, which was recently announced as already having landed a film deal. So that's exciting. We're partnering with Skiba Vision. I don't have any more details on that, except it's in the pipeline for film, which is great.
I have one detail I can share. It's going to have blood in it.
Lots of blood. This is true. So Curse of Cleaver County has a one-shot that's going to debut it. It's going to come out before the end of the year. There's ash cans out right now that introduce Garrett Gunn's character named Shank. And what this is it's a shared horror universe with multiple writers working in it. And Garrett and I are the first two of those writers that are fleshing out the world and the cities and the towns and villages in Cleaver County, this cursed place where horrible things happen all the time. So his character Shank is already debuted in the Ashcan, and the first one shot will feature one story with Shank and one story with my character, the Direville Devil. We have kept him under wraps, so you have not been able to see what he looks like yet. Soon, very soon, we're going to be like revealing the Direville Devil, but I cannot wait. So yeah, I'm writing 2 volumes where I'm writing 8 issues right now for Curse of Cleaver County.
Will your and Garrett's arcs feature the same artist, or are we doing different artists for different writers?
It's an excellent question. So the cool thing about this series is it's going to have lots of jumping on points, lots of mini story arcs throughout, even though it's an ongoing. And we can change artists throughout to suit each story arc best. So in the very first comic is the one-shot double feature that introduces Shank and introduces the Direville Devil. The first story, the Shank story, is illustrated by Kit Wallace, who we might know from Good Boy and many other comics he does for us. He's the best. And the second story that I wrote about the Direville Devil is illustrated by Kayla Valerio, one of my favorite artists in the whole world. It's her first time returning to sequentials in a few years. She's been mostly doing covers, and she's just incredible. I want to show you guys so bad this page that I have on my phone right now.
It's so good.
And I can't show you, and I want to cry. It's so good.
I see your face and I know exactly what page you're talking about.
It's amazing.
So good.
This brings me to a question I love asking people that work on collaborative art, like creative projects. Who's been your favorite creator to work with?
Ooh, like overall, I would say Malia. Malia's awesome. Like, oh my gosh, the communication with Malia is really great. Her drawings are really great. Just every time you get a message from Malia, it's like, oh, thanks. Here you go. Here's the thing. Do you need anything else? And you're just like, you sweet baby child. Yes, please work for us. Do all the art for us. She's one of my faves.
She is awesome.
She's new to the game for us, but yeah, I love working with her.
There will be more coming from Malia with us too. And she also just, congratulations to her. Everybody give a little clap symbol in the comments. She just landed a pretty cool gig at DreamWorks.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
So for me, Damien Torres. Damien is, he is the artist on issue 3 of the Winchester Mystery House series. And he is just phenomenal. And he's also the artist of the 100-Year Curse one-shot, which if we hit 25K is going to get added to this book, getting a whole additional comic for no additional charge. He is incredible, and he puts up with my crap. I'm very much like a info dump person. I'll be like, here's a million things that you didn't ask, and I'll give you all this stuff, and then I'll ghost and disappear for like a month.
Here's 10 folders full of 100 photos.
Yes, I'll do it all at once, and then you won't hear from me. And like, he is so good at working with me, which is not easy. And he's super patient and kind, and he's so talented. And plus, I'll Zoom with him, and we'll go over the script together. And I'll like act out panels and stuff. I'll be like, this is how they would be, this is their body language in this scene because this is their level of relationship and things like that. And he gets it. He gets me. and he adds, he like brings things to the pages that are so much more than what I would have ever dreamed. And sometimes I'll do thumbnails for him, and he'll be like, okay, Josh, but let's do it better. Here's an example. So like on this page, I did this thumbnail at the top. I don't know if you can see on the camera. And then there's the inks of the actual page that he did. And it's just like he took that scene and he made it so much more interesting because he's such a pro. He's so good. So Damien Torres, look him up, send him lots of love. You're going to, if you back the Backer Kit campaign, you're going to get his work and you're going to become a huge fan, because I'm a huge fan of his as well.
All right, we're getting to the end of the hour, so I'm just going to ask before we go ahead and head out, is there anything else you'd like to say to everybody before we take off?
Back the campaign already!
Yes, please tell.
Do it!
I know that everyone here has comic buddies, but this is the campaign that you don't have to have a comic buddy to get them into it. If they're into like supernatural podcasts, if they're into true crime, if they're into history and like haunted places, this is so up their alley.
Get it for your spooky wife.
Exactly.
She'll love it.
Spooky wives are really into this. I signed
Spooky
a lot
wives.
of comics for Spooky Wives.
These will be arriving in early November, which means that they'll come in time for you to have a gift taken care of for Christmas.
Best Christmas present.
Yeah.
Oh man, if somebody got me this for Christmas, I'd say, well, first of all, that's weird, but I would love it. I would love that. It would be the coolest gift. So yeah, again, this is Centennial Edition, is limited. It's not a thing that's going to be available later. So yeah, jump on it now.
It's so cool.
And help us get through the stretch goals so we can make it even cooler for you.
Thank you so much, Josh and Lex. Everybody say bye.
Bye.